In meinem Vortrag wird es um die Möglichkeiten der digitalen Heizung gehen. Das bedeutet um Möglichkeiten, die entstehen, wenn man Heizungen an das Internet anschließt. Das sind auf der einen Seite die Vorteile für den Endverwender, Energieeinsparung, höherer Bedienkomfort und Steigerung der Sicherheit, aber natürlich auch die Vorteile für den Fachhandwerker, der ganz neue Servicemodelle für seine Kunden entwickeln kann.
My name is Carsten Kuhlmann. For a year or so, I have been in charge of digital heating within the Association of the German Heating Industry, heating and IT. These are terms that I have some trouble getting used to, but I am getting used to them now. What is the purpose of our group working on digital heating or heating and IT? Well, we try to pool all the activities of our association in the field of connectivity, new digital services for our partners and customers. So we try to pool all these activities in order to work on them systematically. What am I going to do in the next 30 minutes? Well, I'm going to give you a brief overview of our working areas. What people are typically interested in is why we are doing all this. How are our customers wired? What is their mindset? What does that mean to our industry? The heating industry, the installers industry, as well as the manufacturers. Next, I'm going to tell you a bit about how we typically put it into practice, technically speaking, without, however, being anywhere near to the point of standardization. And fourth, and this is the most interesting question, who benefits from all this? Why do we do it? The first question, how is our customer wired? Well, it is absolutely key to our activities and ambitions of digitalizing heating. We know that everybody nowadays, not just the 14 years old people, but including everybody here in the room, we spend much more time in front of our computers than in front of the television. Partly because we watch television using our computers, but nevertheless, the user behavior, the consumption patterns of consumers have changed. We all know that. The share of new business models is going up. Food is being ordered online. Holidays are being booked online. That's not so good for the brick-and-mortar travel agencies, but actually a lot is being ordered and booked online. So something is under development here. And as a result, there is a trend for consumers to be willing to control their heatings via an app. What is going on there? Well, it is pretty manageable as of now. Customers want to have some basic information as to whether their heating is running or whether it is not running. Is it operational or is it not operational? So we are talking about rather basic questions. As long as the customers are at home, well, they will notice anyway. But there are some new user stories. If I'm in a wintertime vacation and my heating breaks down and I get home after the vacation and there are minus 15 degrees centigrade in my apartment, that's not what I want to have. I want to be alerted in advance. The second demand customers have is they want to be able to influence the temperature setting, make it a little warmer, a little cooler. Typically, customers want this to be a feature for 3 or 4 weeks after installation, and typically after 4 weeks customers lose their active interest in this temperature regulation feature, including night setbacks. But what customers do use is time control. For instance, if they are away from home, if they want to postpone or move up the night setback, if they want to adjust to vacation times, etc. And that's something the industry should look into, because the complexity that is part of our heating controls must not be reflected in the app controls. End users really want simple options: warm, cold, present, not present. But the complexity that we have pushed on them in recent years, forcing them to look into everything that a heating control system can do, well, that was simply over the top, and it was too much for users. Now, if we look into these matters, let's take a look at the messages we have to our customers. Well, there are some mandatory and some optional features we should offer. Mandatory features include simple operating settings such as warm versus cold, when should that happen, information on critical operating conditions, etc. But there are some optional features such as energy savings tips, evaluating the operation of the system. These optional features are something that the customer may be willing to buy for. Think of geofencing, for instance, the system noticing if you get near the building. Is that enough? An app-based system operation available to the user? That would just mean we have to make the connection between the smartphone of our user and the boiler manufacturer. No, that's not enough, because the key component, which holds the key added value, which goes far beyond what I've described so far, the key profit is in bringing the installer into play, the heating installer. That's what we have been focusing on in recent months. How do we involve the heating installer? The heating installer should be able to do everything that the end user can do with their app. If need be, it may as well be the same app, but it's not necessarily recommendable. And what is absolutely critical is to make sure that while the customer gets used to their app, the heating installer cannot follow this development. In the past, you got a call from your customer and they said, "My heating is not working." The heating installer just jumped into their van and they drove to the customer's home. But if now the customer calls you, they go like, "Oh, I just wanted to increase the temperature a little bit and now this or that is not working," you, the heating installer, are expected to provide them with remote support based on a simple logic. This should be possible to the extent that the customer is acting online. So today, heating installers and professional service companies should be able to do that too. Another optional feature is that you upgrade your maintenance business, your service business. After all, we are faced with a major problem. In the past few years, we've built heating systems that do not actually require annual maintenance anymore. I don't want to tread on anybody's toes here, so those of you who don't want to listen, just don't listen. But actually, we no longer need to service each and every modern heating system. However, you can actually look into ways of optimizing the operation of the heating. So it's no longer a must maintenance. Instead, the boiler is still there physically, the exhaust gas measurement is still okay. Well, that's not the service business we want to be happy and satisfied with. Currently, we are servicing no more than 50% of all heating systems in Germany, but we can do more about that. For instance, if I have tracked the operation of the heating system and if I can evaluate this operation and if I can draw some conclusions as to improving the efficiency, that will certainly upgrade our service business. And once I've looked into operating data analysis, new fields of of business are opening up. We don't know exactly what they may look like in the future, but let me give you an example. If I analyze operating data, I can easily see whether a critical operating condition is imminent. There are quite far-reaching opportunities here, and you can proactively intervene before the heating breaks down and everything goes cold in the apartment. So how do we put this into practice, technically speaking? The industry has been learning that we should not overtax our market partners. So this is not something that will just work by itself. You can't just tell everybody, okay, people, now we are going digital and we'll help our customers get exactly where they want. No. We'll have to be focused as an industry. We have to build simple and clear instruments, just like we have been used to doing in the field of heating devices. Let me show you the underlying principle. We make a connection between the boiler and the server somewhere, typically operated by the manufacturer of the heating device or system. That would be the typical setting. And using the server, we can enable the consumer to operate their heating and to retrieve further information on possible optimization measures, etc. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is getting the installer involved. The installer will have to work on the same data platform in order to offer their services appropriately. There are some difficulties we are facing, including the legal framework. We have to make sure that we will not be flooded with data protection and privacy issues. In Germany, it is pretty clear the end user or consumer is the owner of the data, the operating data they produce. These are of private nature. Think of vacation programs, for instance. You don't, as the owner of a heating system, you don't want to know everybody in public that you are on a holiday. So we actually will need to get the owners or users' permission to have and use their data in order to process them, in order to make them available to the user, and in order to use them in our in-house development departments. In order to do so, you'll have to process the data in an anonymous and aggregate format. And the operator, the person owning the heating system, will have to give permission for the data to be received by the installer. And they will need to have an opt-out option, because if they no longer want to cooperate with that particular installer, they will have to be able to unmarry the installer, as it were. What is the legal obligation that the installer incurs at that point in time? Well, the user of the heating system expects that there will be 100% security and reliability once they are online, once they are connected. If the system breaks down, they want to be alerted, they want a red light to flash, and if they are on vacation, they want to be sure that their home is not damaged because the heating breaks down. So there are some points of difficulty because there might be modem breakdowns, server breakdowns. So we, as the manufacturer, don't get the information in the first place, or else if we get the information, we may forward them to the installer and the installer doesn't respond. So we really have to lay down very clear contractual obligations between the manufacturers, the installers, and the customers or end users. Otherwise, we may run into a critical situation because the end user expects 100% safety and reliability, and they expect to be 100% cared for by the manufacturer and/or installer. So who will benefit from all this? Well, let me be impolite enough to start with our own side, the manufacturers. If we evaluate operating data, if we analyze them, if we see how many or how few controls are actually used, what we can make better, what we can optimize, this will have a tremendous influence on our own development. Second, there are new opportunities in the B2B business. The information that we generate and process and provide to our market partners, well, this data is valuable. And if we upgrade the maintenance man's or installer's business, there will be some financial settlement due. And then, of course, we can secure our sales volumes that way. We have so many players in the industry who don't come from the heating business in the first place. Think of Apple HomeKit, Google's Nest, Amazon HomeKit, etc. These are platform providers that do interfere in the heating business. And if we don't reach the point where we, the heating manufacturers, can really stand our ground and gain additional ground, our business will become difficult in the future. Next, the end user. The end user will benefit from better ease of use. If we go about it in a disciplined way, we'll enable the end user to operate their heating properly and self-sufficiently. We will enhance operating reliability, and we will enable energy savings. And that's a critical point. Whenever the question arises, what's in it for me? What's your savings worth? Well, if the end user says, okay, let me use geofencing so I can save energy by having my non-presence detected, savings of up to 30% are being promised by the providers of such solutions. But actually, I don't want to tread on anybody's toes, but I think that's far over the top. It's not realistic. We actually asked the ITG to do a brief study for us to look into the difference between a modern heating device with an app connection, app usability, and all the possibilities attached to that, and a more traditional device without such connectivity. And we ran into a host of matters because we had to factor in things that are closely connected to the real or assumed user behavior. We, as hardcore utilities guys, are quite new to that field, but it's pretty logical. Now, if a person used to be thrifty 30 years ago, they switched down the heating if and when they left their home. They can do that electronically nowadays, using their Wi-Fi, using their mobiles. But they will actually use more energy by using the app control. In the past, they just used to manually turn the switch. But now, 30 years ago, well, when they came back, they started up the heating again, and they spend a couple of minutes or even hours freezing until the comfort temperature had been reached again. So nowadays, you can quickly and remotely start up your heating again from afar. So after doing a lot of calculations, after going through all that complexity, we arrived at the point where we can safely say 8 to 15%. That's the savings potential to be tapped by optimized user behavior and optimized system efficiency. I would be glad if the industry stood by these figures like one because we do not want to give rise to expectations that we cannot live up to in the end. We don't want to exaggerate by promising huge savings that we cannot help people achieve in the end. So let's be fair, let's be frank, let's really look into what is possible, and let's communicate realistic values, because whatever goes beyond that 15% value is not realistic, I believe. Who else benefits from it? Well, the installer. The installer can enhance their customer loyalty. They should not lose their customers by not having a clue what the user has been doing on the internet. So if they partner with the end users in a reasonable way, new business models will arrive that will give rise to enhanced levels of customer loyalty. We will be able to achieve cost reductions in service because many things can be handled online that used to require on-site presence in the past. And as an industry, we can define and offer new service business. So who benefits from it? The end user, the manufacturer, and the installer or tradesman. So let me place a last appeal here. Digitization is an opportunity. It's not something that you should be deterred by. If we walk across this trade show, there is not a single manufacturer who does not talk about what they can do about digitalization. So do take an interest in it. Do grasp it positively. Digitalization is an opportunity.
Finde ich wirklich interessant.